Oh, yes, it is Friday. I am back. It's Spence. Hey, welcome to Office Hours. It is Friday, March 29th, 2024. Still kind of hurts my head to say that and think that. Hope you guys are doing well, having a good week. Admittedly, I'm a couple minutes late because I went for a walk. It is sunny, still cold, 40 degrees here, but one of the things I'm very much looking forward to, which is kind of one of the topics we're going to cover today, is the things that I do to stay motivated running an online business, as I have done now for going on 20 years. Really, really strange to say. And I want to introduce today's topic, and I want to do my quick check. Hold on one second. Let me get an audio on this. 1 second. Got to do it. There we go. Getting better at this. The thing about running an online business, if you are a solopreneur or a creator, or even if you're a small enterprise, but you're the one in charge, is that there's a large weight that many of us carry on our shoulders as part of this process, right? In other words, the buck stops right here. The buck stops with you. And it's very easy to go into what you might call analysis paralysis mode, or feeling overwhelmed mode, or shutdown mode. And this could be due to a multitude of problems, not the least of which it could be just, I always have to do, I wish I could scale this. Let me do this. There we go. Not the least of which could be emotional, mental, anxiety, analysis paralysis, emotional, mental issues. Number two, could be physical, right? I've had my share of those where something happens and you're just basically feeling not so capable, as I tighten up my belt here, not so capable of physically doing the work. And so you lose your motivation. And then once you fall off that, the momentum is gone. Number three, could be family or other relationship things that are important to you, right? I have 3 kids. I raised them myself for the most part. And I know that there were days when I just literally had to shift gears, as we'll talk about in a second, in order to prioritize the kids or the things that needed to be done before the business stuff. And good morning. Number 4, it could be financial. There could be things that are unrelated to what you're trying to do, but that are pulling at you. There's a tax lien, the mortgage comes due, the car breaks. All of a sudden, the budget that you had set out for just falls apart. Not due to your own bad planning, but just life happens. And then finally, I would say there's things outside of your control. I'll put that as a gargantuan bucket. Those are things that change. For example, in the WordPress ecosystem, one of the solutions that I really feel after 20 years I finally arrived at is the idea that I am able to provide a curated solution in a very complex, I call it flea market of WordPress stuff. I'm able to provide a very simple WordPress as a service type of solution that for most all of the people who benefit from that is a welcome relief. It's something that they just need, the concierge type service. But I'll often find that I wake up in the morning, somebody in the core of WordPress has decided to pull the plug, almost like that character in the movie Airplane, where the guy pulls the plug on the air traffic control radar and stuff. Ha ha ha. So outside of your control are the last ones. So what I want to do today, I actually prepared a bunch of slides for an office hours. And I know that there was at least a few questions that if I have time, I will cover that have to do with more of the mechanics and the fun stuff. Let me just go ahead and click up the slides and also join me now. Okay. I do have some new team members that are probably going to come on board and help me with some of these things in the future. But right now, I like the fact that, again, I sort of live in the dream as a solopreneur, doing it all, wearing all the hats. Okay, number 1, the way to stay motivated when any of those 5 types of circumstances sort of hit the fan outside of your control. Set clear and achievable goals. As I move away from the mic, I want to get I have this awesome computer right here that I use every morning as a practice. I wake up from what is hopefully a reasonable sleep. And as I do my morning routine, make the bed, make the coffee, walk around in circles, stretch out, do the things that I've got to do to kind of get the machine rolling. One of the things I always do before I hit the work is I grab that pad of paper and a pencil because I feel it's very tactile and it's very calming and quieting versus typing on the screen. But if you feel like typing is better, you can do that. And I literally write down not more than 5, usually 3 things that I need to achieve today. And they don't have to be remarkable. They don't have to be, climb Mount Everest by lunch. They could be more just 3 things. And here's why. The strategy is the same as the one that I use when I mentioned I get up every morning and I make my bed. That's something I borrowed a long time ago. I can't remember who gave me the inspiration. It's a cliche, but there was some military guy who once said that if you do nothing else, I think I heard this through Tim Ferriss or can't remember. It's ages ago. If you do nothing else, make your bed as soon as you wake up in the morning. Why? Because then the rest of the day, you can always say, at least you achieve that goal. And it's really true, as stupidly simple as that is. I've used that for the last 20 years. And even in the worst of days, I go walk past my room and I'm having a rough time with something. I go, hey, check that bed out. It looks pretty good. So I always make the extension of that I write down at least 3 things, usually 3 to 5, that I know I can likely achieve. Now, yesterday I wrote down 5 and 2 of them were a little bigger and I didn't get them because they were outside of my control. But at least I got 3 of the 5. And this morning when I started out, I took those other 2 over and made them part of today's list. This is a remarkably useful thing for keeping you in the game, even when one of those 5 things is knocking you out, right? Like you never quite lose the thread. Like I used to water ski, like, you're almost going to fall, but you're still holding onto the handle of the rope and being pulled by the boat. If you just do the minimal amount to keep you in the game of, okay, look, maybe I didn't do all 5 today. I did 1 of them. And if you have a really horrendous day, just move the 5 over to the second day and be sure to at least knock out 1 of them. At least doing that will keep you in the game, mindset wise, and I think strategically wise, because, the easiest things to give up are the things that you stop doing altogether. If you make a practice of something, it's impossible to give it up. We'll talk about it in a second. My whole idea of walking is big on my list. This one should be obvious. And I'm not going to come at anybody pretending like I don't do social media. I social media as much as anybody, but it's very strategic. So I use a little thing on my phone. I tried giving up social media on my phone. That's just not going to happen, because that cut into my practical ability to do things when it was able to be done, right? Like I'm sitting around waiting for something to happen and I've got my phone. I might as well knock out some of the things I have to do from social media standpoint for business. But restricting the time that you spend on social media and to a certain degree, email, whether you do like I do, inbox 0, or you have a time of day that you do it, will minimize your distractions, first of all, and allow you to just focus for whatever time you want to, whether it's like maybe you like to work in a block of 20 minutes or 30-minute stretch, right? And you set your little timer or mentally set your timer, or you're like me, where I just have working hours. And between those working hours, I come and I go and I do various things, but I know when I have scheduled calls and I know when I have, like on Fridays today, those are days I typically don't do scheduled calls. I just do media, production, coding, thoughtful things that I can't get done during the rest of the work week because I have scheduled calls. But not having my mind constantly pulled to tweeting and posting onto Facebook and so forth is a benefit. You do need to do the email. I feel that especially in a relationship business, staying on top of email is important, but the email is the same way. I basically am very strategic now about answering customers first and always, and then pushing the other stuff into either categories or using the tools that allow me to like send it back to me later in the evening or something, especially when it comes to news sources or newsletters. If you really want to stay on top of the industry, again, WordPress or otherwise, AI, you need to have some trusted sources that send you the links. But I do feel that the more you focus on those out of place, the more you just keep taking yourself out of the game and you get nowhere. So be sure to structure them if you're going to do them. But in general, limiting them, one of the last things I've been doing as of late, I used to be an avid reader of typical, printed books. And I find that I still do that occasionally, but it's awkward because I've always got my phone or some device with me. So I do have a Kindle, or you could use a free reader. And I've just downloaded a bunch of books that are related to things that I feel pull me into them. I like fiction. and I also like biographies, but I like self-help. So any of those three categories for me, I've always got something in there that it's compelling enough for me to use as an alternative, like a placebo to social media. Okay, number three, engaging with your community. Now, I find this the most rewarding of all. When I am not super motivated, or if I'm feeling like a little burnt out, the most beneficial tool for me is to get the energy back from my clients, my customers, from all of you guys who are really the ones that have inspired me and made it possible for me personally, as well as you doing for your customers, the thing that you do, right? I am solving a pain point for you because I had that pain point and I recognize there's a niche in the market for this. And in doing so, the best advice, the information, the feedback, the otherwise comes from your questions, comes from your feedback, comes from your literally telling me what's working and what's not working. So if I'm feeling like a little stuck, or if I'm feeling, what the hell am I going to talk about today? That is absolutely what I turn to. In fact, today, because it's my production day, I'm going to probably make some good old fashioned Spence videos, as well as finish some code that I've been promising specifically for the requests that many of you have made for things that you want to learn more about, or for things that you needed that I had started and promised. I have um, probably a backlog of 3 or 4 or 5 big things that I am planning on releasing, and I've been talking about releasing, but that they're just always like 99% done. And today is a good day for me. Push them over the edge and then engage by releasing them into the community and seeing what you guys think about it. Is this working? Is this helping? Is it doing what you want? Okay, number 4, reward yourself. Now, this is a system, whatever system you want, of tasks or achieving goals to celebrate what you've done, big or small. So, for example, I had a really good talk with my father, who's 83, yesterday. He and my mom are at the age where, as a Gen Xer, I and my sister are sort of having to help them with more than the roles have reversed. We're helping them more than they have helped us in a long time, right? Like, it's almost that I have 3 kids. I hope it's the same way. You come to rely on your children. So my father is needing some various help. He's doing better than most of his friends. But the point is, I go over to see him yesterday, and I feel good about the fact that I'm helping my father. But more importantly, it was a beautiful sunny day, and I had various this and various that going on. And I recognize that, with all the struggles I've had as of late, with the overcoming the surgeries and the other things that I've talked about, that it's okay for me to reward myself by just taking the afternoon off, hanging out with my dad, doing some stuff with him. Or after I left him, I went for an extended walk and I just didn't return to working. I ended up watching a movie and laying on my back with some ice pack. And the reward was saying to myself, you know what, it's okay. You had a good week. You were very busy. You were doing various things, because I recognize the ebb and the flow of my motivation. Sometimes you're just not going to be able to get back into the flow, as we call it, the mind state, to be productive. Better to use that time to just say, it's fine. This is a marathon. It is not a sprint. This is a lifestyle business. This is not a win every day at any cost. And I think that there's also a benefit in, like yesterday, for example, one of the reasons I did that is because we had the WP Tonic monthly roundtable show, and I enjoy that show. But after I do that show, I'm standing there for an hour or sitting or whatever. I don't really feel like super much in the developer mind, the sales mind. I'm more in it's time to go out to lunch mindset. So I found that it's okay to reward myself by saying, on those days that happens, that's once a month, or in the case we're hanging out with my dad, because he needs the help and it's nice to spend the time with him. I could just say, fine, that's the benefit of being an entrepreneur, not having to be in courts, not having to be at a showing of a house, not having to be on demand because somebody's pulling me. My clients can be serviced like you guys virtually, which I did a lot of. I did a bunch of emails yesterday and otherwise enjoyed the afternoon off. And then of my big 5, and by the way, I have bonuses for you guys. I have 5 bonus. The 5th is focus on your why. I've talked about this many times. The why is there was a thing called the 5 whys. The why is, keep asking yourself why you are doing things, Because after the third or the fourth or the fifth why, if you're still answering in the right direction as to what the business is that you're doing, then that will keep you motivated, right? So, for example, you're feeling unmotivated. You feel like, oh, is this business worth it? Where is it going? Whatever. By asking the why, you can get to the point of realizing what it might be. I'll do it with myself and give you an example. So after all these years in WordPress, I realized my number one thing I'm really good at is solving complex problems from a lot of random parts for other people like myself who experience that pain. And if I was to tell you who my avatar is, it turns out that there are some younger folks here, but they're mostly Gen X and above. Smart people, previous careers, maybe they have tech backgrounds, but they really don't have the knowledge base or the desire to spend 24 hours a day, as I do, in the throes of WordPress, figuring out which parts go into the kit. So I use the metaphor of Lego store or IKEA store quite a bit. This is WordPress as a service, like Spence threw up a store and delivering it to smart business owners like yourselves who are creators, entrepreneurs, even small enterprise. Why? Because after 25 years, or 20 years, I should say, in specifically WordPress, I found that almost everybody needs an online presence. And it doesn't just incorporate the technology, it incorporates the psychology, the marketing, the process, the procedure, the people. Well, why is it interesting to me? Because I like to solve complex problems where there's lots of moving parts, but I like to do it in a way that's a very personal way. I have never found myself comfortable being in unless I'm paid as a consultant, a room of 25, 30 people or playing corporate games. It doesn't work for my Scorpio personality. So why does this thing that I'm doing work? Well, because people come to me like I'm a concierge in a hotel. I can deliver WordPress as a service for a smart business owner, but I can still deliver it with a small team or by myself in a way that's profitable for the time spent. Why? Because I'm 57 and I realized that I've made a goal for myself after several very successful businesses and many monumental blowouts, because I've been around long enough and I was in the real estate business when it all blew up, that it is important for me to build back the kind of relationship long-term business that I could do for the next 20 to 30 years. Because when I wake up in the morning, I can't think of anything else I'd rather do than jump on the computer and start building or playing or talking or helping or doing. So rather than trying to build a $100 million company that has 5,000 employees, for me, my why is to build a scalable for a one or a small team of people company that continues to deliver solutions and answers in an ever-changing world on a personal basis for other people similarly situated to myself who have a little bit of time on the planet and really appreciate that delivery. Now, I know that's really specific to me, but if you go through the whys yourself, it will help you stay focused, because any of those whys become hooks onto which you can hang your what am I going to do today? Maybe it's building some creative content. Maybe it's marketing. Maybe it's talking to a customer or working on a client project. Maybe it's just brainstorming. Maybe it's thinking like, well, where the hell is this whole thing going? And why am I doing it this way versus that way? But you can find a spot to hang whatever vibe or mood or thing you're in onto. And in doing so, you can really achieve a much greater use of your time over the long run. Good. All right. Sip of water. I've got bonuses because it's Friday and I love you guys. I can't emphasize number 6, bonus number 6, staying physically active. I'm not a doctor. I have played one on TV. No, I have not. Exercise not only improves your physical health, but obviously it improves your mood and your focus. And for me, it's something that I don't think, if I use the metaphor of that car, I don't think anybody who is over 30 can realistically expect to succeed if they are not watching over their physical health. And thankfully, in today's world, younger folks, my kids are in their 20s now, but like younger folks are much more in tune with healthy eating and their bodies and lifestyle. There's other things that are competing with that. Like, you know, if you're into bodybuilding, you take steroids, but like, I'm not judging that. I'm saying eating healthy, trying to take care of your body, and being physically active, whether it's walking or biking or pickleball or any of the activities you particularly like to do, basketball, any of them help, because if your physical body is not up to snuff, it's like having a car that has parts and you're broken on the side of the road. But more importantly, I cannot think of any better activity than my daily walks for me brainstorming, me working out things in my head, even having client calls. I call them walk and talks. So pick an activity, yoga, stretching. I have cleaned up my yoga situation here a bit. It still exists, but I don't have it on camera. Pick a situation, especially with the work at home opportunities, where you can do the physical things that make it possible for your body to not pull back on you, not hold you back, not limit you. And in doing so, you will be liberated for the other things that you need and want to do. Number 7, schedule downtime. Now, I referred to that earlier. That goes along with kind of rewarding yourself. There are going to be days it isn't going to happen, whether you got a migraine, you got the family, you got unexpected circumstances. Be okay with throwing in the towel for the day or plan for it. As I mentioned, I plan that my Fridays are for production, not for calls. That gives me a much better feeling of when I need to be in go-go mode or production mode. Weekends are my wild card, and I enjoy all my activities, my friends and my family, my kids. I play in the band. I go to my kids' hockey. We do stuff together, travel, eat, cook. But I still will do client stuff on the weekend because I like it. I feel like it's my most productive times for doing some stuff that otherwise I would be having to slip between calls on a weekday. So figure out what works for you and be okay with it, because downtime is actually very recuperative and restorative. Financial incentives. So you need the financial milestones. And the best way I would put this would be, you can't win the whole game today. I have to stand up, by the way, because if you're watching me, I've hit the limits on my sitting. Use the financial incentive of something that you can achieve in the near term, as well as maybe towards the long term of your business. And here's the example. As a freelancer, as you start out, or if you have an agency, it's true, you have to do the hustle of finding clients that have almost any odd job in order to pay the bills. And hopefully you can grow that into something that is project-based, which is a larger financial incentive, but it's still very committed to the unique needs of one company, one client, one thing. That's not a productized service. That's not a scalable recurring revenue service. But it's really difficult until you put the work in and you figure out what exactly the pain points are for your client to achieve a productized service. It took me 20 years and 3 do-overs to get to where I'm at today. And I finally feel like, as I just described, it holds up to the 5 whys. So now I'm where I need to be. But for you, you might, for example, while you're working out your thing, may have 3 ideas, one of which is making money and the other 2 are sort of en route. Guess what? All you have to do is just set a goal of, I sold one of those things today, and the other 2 ideas are still, I don't know, up in the air. Sell a second of that thing that you've already sold, or a third or a fourth. Just like I was saying, how you might have 3 or 5 goals set on your paper computer in the morning. Just say, I'm going to sell one of these things, and get on your list or get into a Facebook group or call a bunch of people that are potentially friends who you could bother and see if you can sell that. Because there is nothing that rewards you better or motivates you better than seeing that cha-ching of the Stripe come through. Even better when it's a recurring revenue thing, like a continuity subscription. But even if it's just a one-time sale, cha-ching gives you extra fuel in the engine to go farther with your business. But mentally, it's like saying you're doing the right thing. And if you go from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 16, it could really grow. Even if it's not a recurring revenue business, it's just an income stream. And sometimes that's actually more attractive. As of late, there's a resurgence. I myself am following, I talked about it, Jason Fried and David Hennemeyer Hansen have come back with the idea of software as we used to do it, right? You buy it once is the name of their company. You buy it once and that's it. WordPress and all these SaaS companies, and I'm in that same boat, have provided alternatives to that. But I think those 2 things can live together. Bonus number 9. Numero 9. Limit your multitasking. So it's hard, but by segmenting your activities into like where you are and what you're doing, I think it's easier to focus. For example, I have this kitchen table off to the left here of my office. I sit down with my coffee. I got the foot massager. I've got a special thing that holds my iPhone. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Excuse me. And when I sit there, the act of being in that place and sitting there allows me to say, I am going to achieve this thing. I'm going to start it. I'm going to finish it. That's the same with making my bed, making the coffee, taking my vitamins in the morning, doing my yoga stretches, going out the door for my walk, taking the shower after the walk before the thing. Like if you segment yourself, you can focus on the one thing and do it really well. And I think that your mind accepts that. Your mind cooperates versus if you don't have clear set places and things that you do in those places, your mind's like, hey man, I'm bored. What are we going to do? Like, let's get the phone and start going on Twitter. If you do the specific things in the specific places, even if they're not at always the same time, I think it does put your mind into this is what we're doing. Now, I'll give you an anecdote too. This is something that is a personal choice. I do go to sleep sometimes watching YouTube videos or listening to stuff. I feel like it, with the right kind of stuff, I'll often listen to somebody who's like a podcast or something where it's two voices that are very low key, very ASMR. It relaxes me. What I will not do is I will not have a TV in my bedroom because the light and the sound and the commercials and everything else I know just keep me awake. So some people have that same rule, right? Like the bedroom is for sleeping and lovemaking and some other things. It's not for TV watching. I go with that rule because I feel like otherwise I would stay up all night just distracted by the TV. Well, it works in reverse. If I'm going to make my daily plan, I need to really take that piece of paper and a pen and sit at the table because my mind immediately is trained. Aha, the kitchen table in the morning is for coffee, foot massage, write out those three things. And it's great. It doesn't mean that you should do that. It means that for me, that's a way of avoiding multitasking. Later on in the day, I sort of fall into the trap like many of us of what am I going to do now? And that's when I oftentimes will go for a walk or pickleball or something. Bonus number 10, seek professional help when needed. Now, this one is interesting. I have a psychology degree. I have had good success over the years with friends, family, other professionals that I have paid to go see who do things like cognitive behavioral therapy. If you feel you are at the end of your rope, like you are just not succeeding with self correction, I think the best thing you can do is to get somebody. And I feel like that's what I do for many of you who will hold a mirror up to you, listen to what's wrong, hold a mirror up to you and talk back to you, like Snow White, like mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? Like that is the thing that many of us need from a professional. And it doesn't have to be because you're seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist per se. It could be just a therapist, or it could be a friend, or it could be somebody who's just, like I say, in my position where you're trying to explain what it is you're trying to do, and you need somebody to help you sort it out. And I think sometimes other people see us better than we see ourselves, which is why I go back to the one that I gave you earlier about, interacting with your clients. Many of you have become very good friends of mine because as I was experiencing some of the things that set me back, like my physical problems with the back surgery, as I still do today, I felt that helping you and listening to you was the best reward for me because it took me out of my own head and focused on solving problems, which was ultimately good for you and good for my business. But it also helped me because you were very generous by giving me help and feedback about questions I was having with keeping myself on track, with overcoming how am I going to run the business and help you while I'm suffering through this other stuff. So I would definitely try that if you otherwise are struggling. Today is one of those interesting days because I can see that the viewer count is there, but everybody's very quiet. Nobody said anything. So I'm happy to call Uncle on this. But one of the things that I might do is, I wasn't planning on this, but let me see if I can pull this off. I'm going to see if I can go over to InstaWP. Let me see if I can pull this off. I had some questions about stuff that I can do to help folks with some CSS or some layout stuff, because that's the end of the presentation on the main thing. And I hope it's been helpful to you. I hope this is useful. But now I'm going to see if I can share a different screen. I've got a couple minutes that why not? Let me scale this up a little bit. I have a demo site. Maybe I'll actually hold on. Let me pop a demo site in. It would be better. Scale this bad boy up a bit. I sometimes use InstaWP, but I have a demo site that maybe is better because it's got the launch kit in it. Let me get that. And I'm going to show you a couple things that were brought up. The person who asked the question, I don't want to use her site, but I'm going to show you some examples of how this comes into play. So I think this one will work. Hold on. Let me grab this. There may be other junk on this site because I use it for demo calls, but let's see how we do. I also want to show you, I'm going to show you two things. I'm going to show you a sneak peek, by the way. Let's see if I can do this without giving away too much. I have this thing set up, but okay, I'm going to show you two things. First of all, as a quick sneak peek, I've been talking about how can I improve the delivery of the software. And on Saturdays, hopefully, that I do a great show with Chris Latham, Marketing Hub Ideas. And one of the things that we talked about was I was going to go to a new method of doing things. Instead of you having to have a license and all this extra work, wouldn't it be cool if you just had like a universal key that you picked up, that changed daily, that you picked up from WP Launchify and you used on any of your sites that you're using Launch Kit or Marketing Kit Pro and so forth? And I came up with a different idea. I think I'm going to do this. Instead, wouldn't it be cool if in order to use any of the software bundle or any of the other features that we deliver, wouldn't it be cool if you just used your login credentials that you have as a member of WP Launchify, even if it's on any of your own sites? So for example, here I want to get the latest software bundle for my main site or for any of my client site. Wouldn't it be cool if you just put in your credentials? By the way, this will remotely go check through an API whether or not you're a current subscriber, whether you have access to this. Also, I want you to know I'm going to be releasing this as a standalone thing that you can use yourself. So it's a way for you to give access to your member content on locations that aren't your main membership site. So here inside of the dashboard, this particular user has the proper membership and tag. And so when you click on this, this is what you'll do. It will get all of the various things that you have. You can ignore all of this. This is just for me to see what tags are available. And I can share with you guys because it's not anything that's top flight secret. One of the tags that you get when you're a member is Can Access Launch Kit. So this looks for whether you have that. And if you do, it essentially goes and grabs the latest bundle. And just like that, on any site, you can get this and install it. So whether you have our single site plan or the agency plan, it avoids the need for you to have any of these nonsense old-fashioned keys or licenses or anything. The only thing that matters is that you've got a current membership on my primary site. Same for you, right? And what's neat about this is that any of these things can either be installed individually or you can install them in bulk, right? So if I want to install whatever Fluent SMTP this, I just click on it and it puts the plugin in ready for me to activate it. You can also do this with not on this version, but on the other version that I'm working. It'll also install the theme. It'll install the snapshots. It'll be a way with a much nicer interface to do things simple. Next is that I also wanted to extend this idea out a little bit. And this one is kind of cool. Wouldn't it be cool if you could have content on any site anywhere that people who are partners of yours or customers of yours can access because they have a membership that has a current plan and a current tag on your main site? So here I made an example. I want to make sure this is the right one. Let's say, yeah. So I made an example here of how this would work. The example is with a short code, and you'll be able to use this as well. With a short code on any site, you can have two types of content. You can have content that displays when somebody has the proper membership, And you can have content that shows because they're either logged out or do not, right? So, and I'll probably make these into actual blocks so that you can put the content in there. But even right now, it's just like a starting short code and an ending short code. You put whatever you want in between it. And the net result is that you can have content on any page that has the same interface. Time for a sip of water here. That allows somebody to log in remotely to your membership site. And if the person has the proper tag, great. Now, if they don't have the tag, it will give them a message that says, sorry, you don't have access because your membership's out of date. Click here to buy. I can think of 1,000 use cases where this is great. For example, I have 6 or 7 other businesses that are on different domains. Wouldn't it be cool if I can just share any kind of things I want on those sites to my members, posting it at those sites, but using the membership credentials from the primary membership site? Even something like canva.com, right? I can make, if I release this as I believe I will, I can make something that's a JavaScript snippet that you can post into a Canva page that says, here's a gorgeous sales page. You can immediately access this if you're a member by clicking and logging in. And if you're not a member, it gives you a button that says get a membership real quick. And what will that do? It will send you right to checkout, of course, with your, Launch Kit, Marketing Kit Pro, Poofka solution that I sell so somebody can buy. So this is a really cool extension to me of something that benefits you guys in 2 ways. Number one, it's going to be the way that you're going to get your updates in a much more efficient manner, because you won't have to mess around with what many of you have experienced is on your own sites. If you have caching and so forth, sometimes the registration keys and all that is just a mess. This is just cleaner, simpler, and easier. And second of all, it'll be a tool that you can use for many different types of interesting deliveries. Okay, having said all of that, let me close this down and let's put in this here for a couple minutes. I'm going to show you something that was asked of me. I've got a couple minutes left. In this demo site, I'm going to show you one of the things that you have to understand when you're using mobile responsive or tablet responsive versus desktop responsive. So let's see if I've got a home page here, or let's just make a home page. And for this, I could use the Cadence starter templates, but let's just take something. Let's take something like this pattern, because this will get the job done. Gutenberg through the Cadence blocks has an amazing responsive capability. I'm going to make this a little smaller. I'm going to paste in that pattern. And I'm going to just set up this page as a full width, disable the top and bottom, unbox it. So essentially what I've got is just a full width sales page that I would use for lots of different things. And let's take a look at the preview of this, because this is where it gets into how do I do this. One of the tools that you're going to need when you're working with responsive multi-column layouts with Cadence is something that will simulate mobile and tablet. You cannot rely on what this looks like on the editor end. You just cannot. There's a multitude of reasons, not the least of which is look what happens. Everything changes based upon whether you're showing different columns. So the width of this is actually not even representative of what you're supposed to be looking at. And yes, it is helpful to kind of look at it like this, but this is in no way accurate. This is just representative of what it is that you're supposed to get. So number one, what you need to do is have a second tab open, which has the front end showing. And then there are Chrome extensions or pages. I'm using a Chrome extension called Responsive Viewer. Chrome extension, Responsive Viewer. And I believe it's a website as well. But here's the Chrome extension. There's several of them. That's the icon. It's free. What does it do? You go to the front end and then you click on this icon and it opens up a bunch of tools that allow me to simulate one or more responsive views. Here I've got tablet and I've got iPhone 8 Plus. If I wanted, I could also add desktop in there, which is useful. And I can scale it to fit and so forth. But more importantly is that I can adjust the parameters of the screen, right? Like, so if I know I want to test it on a certain screen size, you can't really see this maybe, but it says up here, really tiny. 1920 by 1080. Tablet, I'm using an iPad 10 and it's 788 by 1112. Mobile, I'm at a iPhone X 379 by 812. Now, why is this important? This gives you a really good view of what's going on. Number two, now that you've got the tool, whether you're starting on the back end or not, let's talk about what happens with some of the components. And I'm not going to make this a whole tutorial, but if we use what I used to call the list view, now they call it the document overview. But by the way, great example here of forces outside my control. The core responsive Gutenberg team, or the core Gutenberg team, changes the names of these things every day, every week, it seems. Like last week it was list view, this week it's document overview. One day it's patterns, then it's responsive blocks. I don't know what it is, but it's this thing with the 3 lines. It's very similar to the navigator in what was Elementor. When we use a row to hold stuff, one of the neat things about it is a row has 2 sections. Think of them like columns. I also like to open up, I'm going to do this a bit. I'm going to give myself a little more breathing room to scale this. Okay. When we go into row view, number 1, content max width. Typically, I will have that set to stay within the container. That is to say, the width will be the full width of the page, but the content will be stuck. But because this design had this really, let's go out of the inspector for a second. Because it had this really wild edge-to-edge image, that wasn't possible, right? Like this obviously is all to the right. But let's take a look at what happens if we go into responsive mode. Notice when I'm in the row layout, I can see this layout right here. I hope that's big enough. It says 2 columns, but that's because I'm currently in desktop mode. See how I've highlighted the desktop. If I go to tablet, I can choose what layout I want. Do I still want it to be the 2 columns, or do I want to do something different? Like maybe I want to collapse it into stacking 2 things on top of each other. Or maybe I want to do a different ratio of the 2 columns. More importantly, when I'm in phone mode, what's going on here? Well, first of all, look how ridiculous this would be. To have 2 columns here would be ridiculous because the first column is going to be so narrow. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. The only thing that makes sense would be to stack it. So each of the 2 columns now becomes whatever the maximum width is that you allow. Obviously, there are things that you can still adjust, like your padding. Similarly, in tablet mode, maybe we don't need all that top stuff. Maybe we want to make that into 0 or some reasonable number, maybe 25. Maybe the bottom, same thing, 25. Okay. Next is I can hide stuff. So there's visibility settings. So as we were talking about before, if we go into, let's go back to desktop mode, maybe that right-hand image is just not necessary in tablet or in mobile, right? Well, there's nothing in this section, but you can see how I've highlighted this section, right? Maybe what I need to do is go to go to visibility settings and just say, screw it. I'm hiding this on mobile. I'm hiding it on tablet because it doesn't need to be there at all. It's purposeless. This usually comes into place with things like the image, right? So let's look at this. If I am on mobile, maybe it's not really useful to have the image of the guy. Maybe it just takes up too much space. Okay. Click on the image of the dude. Go over here, visibility settings, hide that on mobile. Okay. Now, by the way, it's not going to necessarily hide it from you because it's going to still show it so that you can design around it. But when you actually go to look at it, that's where it should not be visible. So if we go ahead and use our responsive viewer tool, and we scroll down, the dude is gone. Okay. Let me know if this kind of stuff is interesting. I used to do this quite frequently, and I still enjoy it. But honestly, give me lists of things you'd like to know. Probably I'll do it because I'll put it in the documentation. But this does get sort of far afield of the main purpose of the kit. Like, the people at IKEA and the Lego store are happy to give you inspiration. I think that's where building out my team or having stuff that is inspired by users is useful as a accessory to it. But the real thing you need is the kit, the tools, the main stuff. So let me know if this is as useful as some of the other mechanics, because there's an infinite array of free design tutorials and videos and people who do nothing but this all day long. And I don't feel that I'm bad at it, but I don't feel that that is as useful for the time spent for me as building the kit or building the mechanics or building the marketing automation stuff, because design stuff is very personal. And though I do love it and I think it's useful, I'm going to wait to see what the feedback is from you guys. I want to say thanks. It's been a great Friday. I love that you're so quiet today. I am going to probably go outside, get a little more fresh air, have a nice lunch. My kids are all out of the house today and this weekend. I've got some socializing this weekend. I'm excited to do it with some friends and otherwise. And I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. And I'm really excited to release some of this new stuff. And also, I'll be getting more in touch with you guys via email. I have been basically laying low on the list, but because I've got this new restructuring and a couple other products, I'm going to be looking to you guys to give me feedback and participate in what I'm offering. Many of you have already subscribed, so it's not like you have to do anything else, to let me know whether it's working out or what you're doing with it or what other things you'd like to see. That's it for this week. I'll see you on the next video.